Welcome back to Solomon's Porch with your host Jason,
And Shawn.
and we are doing our round five, top five women's history or Women's History Month, women-led movies, because March is Women's History Month. That's what happens when you're not thinking too straight, up early in the morning, all that good stuff. But I can go ahead and tell you, whenever I saw this, I was like, I feel like I might know Sean's number one. If you've listened to this show, I'd love to know if you could already guess Sean's number one. For all of you out there, that's all I'll say about that. So anyway, man, let's go ahead and jump into this list.
All right, so yeah, specifically because March is Women's History Month, I thought, well, hey, let's see what our favorite female-led movies would be, and there's far more out there now than there ever have been, obviously, and I was just looking through my movies alone, and I've got some really old stuff. Like I've got Audrey Hepburn, and Audrey Hepburn stuff is still really more of a co-starring. It's like, yeah, she's really good, but we can't really let her lead the movie all by herself. So we've got to bring in a guy to be able to help ground this movie for everybody. And so we start to see that progression where it starts to move away from it, where yeah, maybe there's still a strong male actor in the movie, but he's not a direct co-star. He's sort of like a sub co-star, if you will. And then eventually to a point where we've got just female-led movies. They may have guys in them, but they're not, major players, if you will. So just really interesting, the dynamics to see through all that. My daughter, she loves old movies too, but she's also, very, pro women equality. And, we'll watch some of these movies. I love Hitchcock films. And, the way that women are perceived and portrayed and accept a lot of what is being put on them, if you will, it's really obnoxious. Makes it hard sometimes to be able to watch some of the older movies. So my movies obviously are going to be largely newer movies. One, because they are definitely female-led, as opposed to really co-starring. But we'll go ahead and get started. My number five, I'm gonna have some Quentin Tarantino somewhere in my list.
I'll share
Kill
this with you.
Bill.
Yeah.
Kill Bill, and I'm gonna say volumes 1 and 2 because I don't really see it as two separate movies. It is one movie. It's one storyline. It really has to almost be watched together. He only created them as two separate because it was just too long for the average consumer to sit there and watch 6 hours of film.
Right. Right. Yeah. I thought it was really good. When I first watched it, I was like, man, that's a lot of blood. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I don't know how accurate it is because I've never seen someone's arm get cut off. And
Right.
so I couldn't actually say that's way too fake because I really don't know. I remember thinking that's one of the main things I remember thinking during this film. But also, like, I first saw Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy in the
Mm,
Batman and Robin film. So this film
sure.
was a huge different type of character, and you got the serious moments, you got the action moments. Well, I mean, it's pretty much all serious, but it was just very interesting, and her acting in it was fantastic. And
Yeah.
actually, I probably need to go ahead and watch this again. Uh, well, I'd have to watch it on my own because none of my family would want to see it. But yeah,
And-
yeah,
yeah. When you say it's bloody, it's definitely that. Yeah. It's some really awesome action scenes, some great fight scenes. For me, one of the things that I love about the movies is that we get David Carradine, who played in the Kung Fu TV show, and yeah, was it just Kung Fu? Yeah. Anyway, and it's, as a kid, it was on the TV. My parents were watching it, and I was kind of like, whatever, until the fight scenes, right? And so I've always had that association with him. And Daryl Hannah, I used to have a crush on Daryl Hannah as a kid. from Splash when she was playing the mermaid, and even in Roxanne opposite Steve Martin. So it was cool to be able to see them in something newer. Even though this has been a minute, I don't remember when it came out. Yeah, 2003. It has been a minute, but but still something newer, even at that time. And then the action, and again, Daryl Hannah doing action was just awesome. So anyway, and she's one of the main antagonists.
Yeah, I also like the one of my favorite scenes was her against um, Vivica Fox's character, which I thought was hilarious because she was like, why are you the black, whatever, and she was like, that
Black
should be
Mamba.
me. Yeah, Black Mamba. I almost said Black Widow. That's why I paused. But to me, that was funny. But yeah, just the film was fantastic. The hospital scene where she was trying to get her toes moving and all that kind of stuff. It just showed a lot of effort from her part to pull that off. So
Yeah.
definitely, and it's Quentin Tarantino, so he does incredible action films. So yeah, man, let's move into number four.
So I diverge a little bit from what my normal kind
Yeah,
of list would be for movies with this one. Um, I'm not normally a chick flick kind of guy, but I am a foodie. So I definitely watched this film when it came out, and bought the movie. Still own it. Watch it every so often. Julie and Julia. Amy Adams is my first Amy Adams movie. So before she did Superman, uh, and a billion other things, but plays opposite sort of Meryl Streep. So Meryl Streep portrays Julia Child, and her depiction of Julia Child is just phenomenal. It's so fun. It's so playful. Um, you She makes you fall in love with Julia Child. So for even all of her eccentricities and quirkiness, Meryl Streep just does a great job of bringing her to life and making her relatable. And of course, Amy Adams is pretty much always that anyway. So this was really neat. It also took place. The story takes place just after 9/11, even though the movie came out in 2009. And so, you're still dealing with some of what was going on in society after the Twin Towers. So I like the sort of historical referencing there as well. But it's just a fun movie. I can definitely watch it with my wife and daughter, and everybody's happy. Um, there's thankfully part of it that my daughter doesn't pick up on, something that Julia says that's kind of naughty.
gotcha, man. So my number four is Underworld. Growing up, I was always a fan of lots of different, vampires, zombies, werewolves, all that kind of stuff growing up. And really, vampires is always my favorite. Whenever I would have nightmares, I would dream that I would let the vampire bite me so I could become a vampire. And which to me, it was more like a fantasy instead of a nightmare. But that was just me. But anyway, this film was really good. You got the vampire versus werewolves, before Twilight came out. And, there's always been kind of a historical thing, vampires and werewolves, but this film just did it really well. I felt like Kate Beckinsale did a great job in this film. The action was great. I even liked the special effects and the whole story. And I want to say it was this one. There were so many of them. I want to say this is the one where at the very end she cuts dude's head off, who was like her father figure type guy. And so that part of the film was like wow, and just I don't know, man, just really really good. And this kind of made me somewhat of a fan of more of the modern movies because I always watched the older ones growing up. But I also like Vampire in Brooklyn. So I was kind of all over the scene with vampire films, but this one to me was probably the best. Like my favorite when it came out, it had hit kind of my favorite vampire rendition of film.
I, I bet you watched Twilight too, didn't you?
I actually have not seen Twilight. I have not. I felt like I needed to, just
Sure,
because,
sure.
But no, I haven't
I
watched it.
haven't either. I've seen bits and pieces when it comes on TV. That's about
See, I hadn't even seen that. So you're more of a Twilight expert than I am at this point.
it. Expert such as it is, sure.
All right, man. Let's go to number three.
Number three. This would delight my daughter that this is on my list. Ocean's 8. I like the other Ocean's movies, the male dominated, overwhelming sausage fest of films. They're fun, they're playful. There's some action, lighthearted. There's times when you want to watch a movie, you want enough action interest, but not necessarily fighting action, and you want just enough comedy without it like hurting you because you're laughing so hard. But you don't want so much drama that you're like crying and bawling your eyes out. This is us kind of, junk. So, they went all out. They packed this up with a really good lineup of female cast. Mindy Kaling, Helena Bonham Carter, which I mean, she's just always awesome. Pretty much anything she touches is great. Anne Hathaway, of course. Kate Blanchett. I mean, stellar. And needless to say, Sandra Bullock. But when you're talking about doing relaunches, um, this is probably the best route that anybody has gone with sort of taking that on. I was skeptical at first, when you're talking about taking, because Oceans was a movie that was done with the Rat Pack back in the '60s or something, and so it was definitely a male movie then. They relaunch it; it's a male movie now, and it did really well. So then you're talking about, okay, well, let's put in a female cast. Well, they didn't just say let's redo the exact same thing over again necessarily. I mean, obviously, it's all about theft, um, but we're talking about a sister. So this is Ocean's sister, who is in the family business, if you will, of crime, and she's got her own connections, people that she works with, and it seems natural that the vast majority of them would be women. I might have would have liked to have seen a dude somewhere in there, that
At
had
least,
more of a,
at least
yeah,
Caitlyn Jenner.
you know. She identifies as a she now. Thank you. But to be able to say that, it's an anti-male movie, I see where you're coming from, maybe, but either way, this movie stands on its own, I think, and it's again, it's one of those films I can always pop on and maybe playing in the background. I don't have to pay full attention to it because I'm familiar with it. But it always feels lighthearted enough, that you're not too involved and not too overwhelmed, but can still take a break, sit down, and chill out and pick up the story where it is. So
Gotcha, gotcha. It's weird. A whole bunch of other films just have been popping in my head. I may have to replace one of mine or so.
well,
um,
if you just take a look at Kate Blanchett's catalog of films, if you can place her as lead in any of those, then I think you've got a pretty good list. She's such a great actress. I love her.
well, I was thinking about some other stuff too, but so my number three is Resident Evil. Again, been a zombie movie, zombie game fan. I played the game growing up. Still one of my favorite beloved games as a child. And so when they came out with the film, I was excited. They're not all equally great, but I think that first one had enough live action Resident Evil element to it that really made me appreciate it. I feel like the actress who ironically plays the same actress in Fifth Element, I can't pronounce her last name. Is Mila John
Jovic.
Jovic? Mila Jovic? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Either way, she did a great job, and she's a great action actress. She's a good actionist, if I could say. A lot of her stuff's great, and just felt like it was a very solid film. and it's been so long since I've seen it, but so I can't go into all the little small intricacies of it. But I do know that it still rates among my top five of action-packed films, and partly because it brought out one of my favorite video games, and I felt like it did it good enough. Good enough. So it wasn't like a lot of other video games where I'm like, they should have just not tried to make a movie out of it. And so a lot of people have issues with that. I didn't feel that with this. So that's my number three. How about
All
yours,
right,
sir?
so number two. My number two is Star Wars Rogue One. Somewhere in there you had to figure Star Wars was going to pop up. This was, I think, Felicity Jones' big breakout film. Led to a lot of other things that she's done. I liked her in, World War II movie, something games. Anyway, opposite of Benedict Cumberbatch, was really pretty good. I think it helped to highlight some of her skills. But this it's Star Wars. I mean, what else do you say? It's probably one of my most favorite Star Wars films as well. So, Cassian and K2, you've got this great cast of supporting characters that that helps to amplify what she's doing, what she's experiencing, and so whatever she's bringing to the screen, um, he these supporting cast, Saul Guerrero, are able to really pull more out of that character and make her stand out even more. Um, am I getting her confused with somebody else for that Benedict Cumberbatch movie? I think I am. Anyway, I was trying to look it up at the same time and not doing real good at it. But yeah. So anyway, Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah, man. My number two, I've changed it. I'm gonna have to make my number two an honorable mention. Is
Okay.
Set It Off. Uh, this movie, I don't know, it came out when I was really, really young. It's got uh, Jada Pickett before she was a Smith, Queen Latifah, uh, is that Vivica A. Fox? I can't remember the other lady's name. But this film, man, it is one of those where you see people doing, negative for a good reason. So it gives you
Mm-hmm.
that weird inner, struggle. Like, you're pulling for the people that's doing something wrong, but they started doing it for something good reasons, and then you got the conflicting co-conspirators in a way where Jada Pickett, she's really trying to get money to pay for her little brother to go to college. And just to me, it was just a great story in general, seeing how it starts off. The little brother, I mean, this is spoilers for anybody, obviously, but I'm pretty sure most of y'all have seen Set It Off. So her little brother is, accepted to college, can't figure out how to pay for it. She ends up sleeping with the man for money. He ends up turning down the check saying going to college. Then her coworker gets fired from a bank. Oh, that's what it was. Sorry, she didn't rob it to go to college, but her coworker gets fired from a bank with something that was not her fault at all. So they end up robbing the bank, and it just kind of goes on to do a couple more. The all sorts of stuff. She meets a man who's a manager of a bank, and then she's like robbing the bank and all this stuff. Just a great, fantastic story. And then it ended off in a really cool note for me. And this is actually an all black female cast. So we're recording this in February, right before March. So 2-1, baby. But in general, it is a really great film. It really is. This is one of my favorite as a kid. I actually did tear up on this as a kid, to be honest. And I mean, I was a kid. I don't know if I do that now. I'm gonna man up a little bit. But if you haven't seen it, even though I gave a whole bunch of spoilers, it's still worth seeing and checking out. And Queen Latifah is true to herself in that she is, you know, her own sexual prowess in this film. So anyway, move on to number one.
So let me go and get my correction straight. So the movie I was referencing was The Imitation Game. Um, Sadly, I was confusing Keira Knightley with Felicity Jones. They don't look anything alike. But the movie I was thinking about was The Theory of Everything, where she plays Stephen Hawking's love interest. So anyway, but that was definitely a great film, and she did a spectacular job in it. She was also in Inferno with Tom Hanks, which was really good. So, all right, so my number one movie.
I can't guess what it might be.
Oh, dude, it was supposed to be like the video lagged or something. People were supposed to be like, wait a second, videos, and start clicking on stuff and whatever. Anyway, you messed it up. Anyway, Atomic Blonde. Yeah, okay, all right. Right now, it's still, right up there. It's, I've talked about it before. We're talking about during the Cold War, you've got the Iron Curtain kind of stuff, the whole East-West Germany, Russian spy, KGB stuff going on. It's a lot of fun. Charlize Theron does awesome. She does a lot of her own stunts. The action is great. In fact, I'm not even sure that there's a stunt that's done in there that she doesn't actually do. Just totally kills this film. I mean, she ramps it up, she executes, it follows through, and then supporting cast with like James McAvoy and John Goodman are in it. You may know Eddie, was it Marson from the Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. films. But anyway, it's always a lot of fun. There is supposed to be a second film coming out. They're talking about it potentially being a Netflix only film for Atomic Blonde 2. I'm definitely down with that. I'm not real sure where they could go now that the wall is down, but who knows? Maybe it'll be a prequel kind of thing or something. But yeah.
Well,
Number
I know
one,
with
Atomic Blonde.
Netflix likes to work with with the same actor or actresses, and so she was in Old Guard, which is Netflix, and so I could see
Yeah,
them trying to buy the ability to do that, and
yeah, yeah.
and so
Makes sense.
yeah, so mine is, and some people are going to probably debate me, but multiple sources online agreed with me that this is a woman-led film, and it's Terminator Judgment Day, or Terminator 2 Judgment Day, with Sarah Connor being the lead character. I say she's the lead character. I don't care what y'all say.
Yeah,
The
I
problem
don't know
is,
how much of it's really a story about John though.
I know that, but she's the lead in it, is what I'm saying, and she's at least split a third a lead. So she at least has that, and the story wouldn't exist without her. It's about her son. They go to get her to help. She, to me, she's leading this film, but she does a really good job. Seeing her go from the first to the second film, and even in the third film, or in the what's the newest one? Dark, whatever it's called, the
Yeah,
newest one she was in. She still carries on that action, that the toned down exercise, and to me, she just did a great job in this film. And whenever I first saw Terminator's in the prison and she sees them, she's freaking out. You're almost wanting to tell her in that moment, like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And I remember as a kid, again, this came out when I was a kid. It was one of those things where I really enjoyed her being that character, that mom. And then you got that weird mother son dynamic that I had seen a lot growing up. So she reminded me a lot of mothers that I knew, where it was like her son was more like just another person, not like her son's son, but she still had that love for him and still did stuff for him. So she plays a really good role in that dynamic where it's not the typical, mother nurturing the child, and still
I'm
some of that goes on today.
I'm pretty sure this film is older than you.
I think it is by a couple years at least. I think the first one was like 85 maybe.
Yeah, 84.
Okay.
Terminator 2 was in 91.
Oh no, it ain't older than me. I'm older than it
Okay,
by 2 years. 2 years.
by
That
2 years.
it,
So when you say it came out when you were a kid, you mean toddler.
yeah, yeah. Hey, kid's a kid, right? I
All
will say
right.
this. This is going to sound very much like the guy that left NCIS. One of my favorite things about that film, though, is the music. I love the Terminator 2 specific theme song because it's a little bit different and tweaked from the first one. And yeah, man. So that's my number one, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And in general, it's one of my favorite films from, I would say, the early part of my life. Um, so yeah,
So,
man.
so
That's
with the exception that obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger is supposed to be like the big character, both literally and figuratively. I still would have to disagree with you. I think that the first Terminator movie is definitely um, Sarah centric. So is Dark Fate, which was the most recent Terminator film. It's very Sarah centric. Two is really John centric, and subsequently. So, is
okay.
it really female?
You can sue me. It'll be all right.
Well, I got to give you a hard time about something.
I know, man. And like I said, a lot of people online were, it's one of those debated things. There's a lot of other films that people said were women lead roles, and I was like, there's no way that's a woman lead role. Like Star Wars, Princess Leia being the lead role.
No.
No, no, not at all. In any three that she was in, or even the latter ones. So,
Yeah.
so honorable mentions. We both have several honorable mentions.
Yeah, so I'd mentioned Audrey Hepburn, pretty much her entire catalog, but my favorite, and it was the one film that got me into really watching Audrey Hepburn, is Breakfast at Tiffany's. The Hunger Games movies, like them or not, I like them as a whole, and I still watch them, not just because my daughter loves it. Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot. We've said it before. This is probably one of the best superhero movies, kind of in a general sense, but definitely the best female-led movie. That's not the 1984 movie. This is the old one. Salt, Angelina Jolie. Hidden Figures made my list. Honestly, I kind of wanted them a little bit higher, and it's, I own the film. I just can't say that I watch it as much as I watch the others. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so mine was G.I. Jane was one that
yeah,
didn't make it, but that was really good. Charlie's Angel was the one with Lucy
Drew
Liu,
Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore, and tall lady. Can't remember her name right now. I enjoyed those. I hadn't even seen the new one, but I've heard a lot of people say it bombed. And this next one is mainly because my mother watched it all the time back in the day, and it's the only film she ever watched. A League of Their
Really?
Own. A League of Their Own. My mother's not a movie person, but she watched A League of Their Own, and watching it growing up, I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. And it was interesting. And still today, I'd still watch it if it came on TV.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Force Awakens, I think that's somewhat debatable whether who main character, whatnot. I still think Ray is probably the main focus of that, and so
Yeah.
that makes my list. It's one of my, I think it's one of my top five Star Wars things. And then this is another one that somebody had out there, and it was heavily debated, and I was like, I can't. The title alone makes me
I was gonna
not
say
be
as
able to
soon as you
put
say the title, it's almost like
Logan. Logan. When they
yeah.
come out with the X-23 film, I'm sure I could put that as on my list. But
Yeah, yeah. It
Logan,
it, it it it'd be like citing any of the Avengers movies for Black Widow
yeah, yeah.
or Iron Man movies.
So even
I'm
though,
I'm waiting until Black Widow comes out, and then I can add that to my list.
yeah. So I mean, Laura's a great character. Even seeing some of her development, the attachment that her and Logan have, that the movie's still fantastic. And but I can't put it as on my top five. But to me, it's
Yeah.
close enough to where I'll put it in the honorable mentions.
Well, and that's why like Breakfast at Tiffany's couldn't be in the top five either because she's a co-star.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So anyway, that's it. That's our top five women-led films in honor of Women's History Month. I may wait and drop this in the first week of March, just so it fits a little bit better.
well,
Anyway,
yeah, dude, that's like 2 days away.
yeah, I know, I know. So we'll be back with another segment soon. Make sure you stay tuned.